Right, so I wanted to make a video updating everyone on the whole gun ban situation, as well as the Nova Scotia shooting situation. So the first thing I wanted to talk about here is from Dan Mazier. He says, not only did Bill Blair not tell me how many criminals his firearms will impact, which is none, he had the audacity to say the ban will not impact law-abiding firearms owners. Uh, and by definition it impacts law-abiding firearms owners. Like they're really that delusional and that manipulative that they actually are telling people this. It literally affects law-abiding firearms owners by definition. If it didn't, then why would they send out those stupid letters letting all the legal gun owners know about it? If it doesn't affect them, why would they send it out? Doesn't make any sense. So of course it does. um, and that's the problem when it comes. I mean, one of the many problems when it comes to this kind of stuff is that there's no reason for it in the first place. They're just worried about their political agenda, and that's what gun control is. It's just a BS political agenda. There's no reason. There's no evidence that proves that gun control reduces crime in any way, shape, or form. I've made several videos about that. I mean, you just think about it from a logical perspective. The problem is what the anti-gunners do is that, number one, they do very little research, and the research they do doesn't have any basis in. It's a classic correlation causation fallacy, and that the main argument they'll always bring up, oh, is Canada has more gun control than the states, and Canada has a lower murder rate than the states, therefore gun control works. But what they don't tell you, and if you spent any more time looking into it, you would quickly realize that Canada's murder rate was almost the exact same if you take an average uh, before the gun ban. I mean, it took over it for the first 10 years of the gun ban. The murder rate was almost unchanged. It went down very slightly since then, but the gun ban in Canada, at least the modern one, had very little effect on crime. And when you look at the numbers, you'll quickly find that. I mean, the murder rate was almost there's almost no difference between it before and after the gun ban. So that based off that, there's no correlation between Canada's gun laws and Canada having less crimes. And when you look at the states, well, I mean, for starters, the murder rate in the states has been cut in half over the last 25 or 30 years. During that time, the amount of guns has more than doubled. So that's a pretty strong piece of evidence that shows gun control doesn't work. Constitutional carry states, which are the states with the loosest gun control when it comes to carry, do not have a higher murder rate than the average. The states that have the strictest carry laws do not have a lower murder rate than the average. So again, there's no evidence within the states that links more gun control within the states to reducing crime, and that's the problem. The other problem is that the gun laws in the states vary very greatly state to state. They're not all the same. In Canada, the gun laws are all the same province to province, at least as of now. Um, and within state to state, the gun laws can vary very drastically. I mean, there's gun laws in states like California and New Jersey and some of these more strict gun control states that we don't even have in Canada. I mean, California, they the bullet button. We don't have that in Canada. In New Jersey, I believe it's illegal to even hold a gun if you don't already own it. So there's crap like that. I mean, California pistol grips are illegal. We can have as many pistol grips as we want in Canada. Um, so those are just some things off the top of my head. But getting back to the main point here is that these people are lying, and when people have to lie and manipulate you to get what they want, what they're asking for is never a good thing. Because if it's a good thing, then you shouldn't have to lie to people. You shouldn't have to manipulate people by default. By default. And that's one of the easiest ways you can tell if people are what they're trying to do is manipulative, lying, cunning, whatever you want to call it, that if they have to lie and manipulate people, that is one of the easiest ways, if not the easiest way to tell. So this just goes to show that, I mean, not that we didn't have the evidence already, but the gun ban is a complete pile of garbage. I really hope it's struck down. And what you can do as far as that goes is that donate to the gun rights groups. I mean, there's more than one. There's several. Some individuals. There's some gun rights groups that are taking the government to court. So support those people. And if you can't afford to support them, at the very least, follow them on all the social media pages and YouTube channels, all that kind of stuff, Twitter, and share the information, because that's as good as anything. Maybe, someone, that you share the information with will see it and be like, hey, I want to support them, and gives them money, and or maybe they spread the info. So that's what you can do as far as that goes. Um, the other thing I wanted to talk about here, as far as the Nova Scotia shooting goes, this KPAC15 on Twitter, he puts it in a pretty good way, and that's recap of the Nova Scotia shooter related to two RCMP officials, two reports to RCMP of his illegal weapons and spousal abuse, illegal guns smuggled in from the States, Amber Alert not issued, RCMP shoot up empty fire hall. Now again, the report of this was heavily redacted, which just goes to show that there's a lot of stuff that's being hidden from the public. Now, why is it being hidden from the public? I think that there's two main reasons. Two main reasons for that. I think number one, the RCMP is trying to cover up just how incompetent and just how poorly they handled the whole situation. And number two, and I think something that's a little less likely, but I still think more likely than not, is it just goes, it would be evidence that shows that no new gun laws the government's going to put in would have affected this. Because, I mean, we already know most of the, I think 3 of the 4 guns he used were already illegal in the first place. The other one, they haven't released any, I mean, they haven't released any info on any of the guns, but they haven't released any info on whether or not he got it. I mean, 3 of the 4 were from the States, which means they're illegal by default. Or sorry, illegally bought from the States. I mean, technically guns can come from there. You can't go buy one and bring it across the border, which he clearly did, or he paid someone else to do it. And like I said, the other gun, they're not giving any info on, which almost guaranteed it was stolen or bought illegally. So I think that it's very clear that number one, the RCMP is trying to cover up just how poorly they handled the situation. And number two, they're trying to cover up the fact that no new gun laws are going to would have changed the outcome here. Like not one. And I think that's blatantly obvious to anybody paying attention. I mean, we don't know for 100% for sure because we can't read it. But if they had evidence to disprove either one of my hypotheses, I'm pretty sure they would have given evidence to disprove that kind of stuff. So I would be very confident in saying both of those things, and that's what we have now in Canada. That stuff like this can happen, and legal gun owners take the brunt for no good reason whatsoever. I mean, Bill Blair even admitted that legal gun owners pose no disproportionate threat to society, and yet they're still turning around and increasing gun control. And the problem is that people make, if we ban guns, it will save lives. Again, there's first of all, there's no evidence that supports that kind of stuff. The second point being is that gun owners pose no disproportionate risk to society. So you're not changing anything. You would be just as well off targeting any other group of people or member of society uh, and coming up with laws to prevent murder when it comes to that. Because if you actually care about saving lives, you don't just blindly say, guns kill people, therefore if we increase gun control, we're going to reduce crime. No, that's not true. That's not true at all. Because legal gun owners commit an incredibly small amount of crime, even less than the members of the general public. They're less likely to murder people than members of the general public. So if you actually care about saving lives, you wouldn't focus on legal gun owners. You wouldn't make if we increase gun control, you have to admit that it will reduce crime. Or no, that's not true. That's not true, because the only way that would be true is if legal gun owners pose a disproportionate risk to society, which they don't. And there's several, I mean, Bill Blair even admitted that, and there's several studies to back that up. I've even made a video on one of them. So that's the what I wanted to talk about today. It's just incredibly disappointing, the stuff that's going on in Canada right now. And like I say, that all you can do is just stop paying attention to the mainstream media, stop giving these stupid liberals and lefties any credibility, and follow and spread information of people that are actually speaking the truth and are actually doing what's right. That's all we can do. So anyway, I'm gonna leave the video there. If you'd like to, make sure that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email if you have. Sorry, check out my PayPal and email. I got all the links are in the description. Check me out on Twitter. Check me out on BitChute. Like I say, all the links are in the description, so you can find them all there.